It's early in the morning, a cold December morning, and I'm in Ferrière-Larçon, a very charming little village in southern Touraine, which has this beautiful large church, Saint-Mond-de-Saint-Jean, which dates from the 12th century. So today there are 260 people here in the commune, in the municipality. In the 12th century, clearly there were a lot more, and in the 19th century there were a lot more because there was a thriving hemp weaving industry here. There are also a lot of troglodytic habitations in the village. That's to say, caves dug into the tuffeau stone, often fronted today with house facades. We'll take a look at those, but I've really come here to see not the village, but a little spot just south of the village, tucked away in the countryside, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But the key word here to remember is wilding, or rewilding. That's your clue. But let's first have a little look around the village. Here we are at Les Perrons de Murat. I mentioned the words wilding and rewilding earlier. What do they mean? Well, they mean returning to nature, returning the countryside to nature, very often countryside that's been farmed industrially. And here we have a 40-hectare site that has been rewilded. Now, there are rewilding projects all over the world, some very large projects that cover entire regions, where predators that are high on the food chain, like bears and wolves and birds of prey, are reintroduced to reactivate the ecosystem. There are medium-sized wilding projects where landowners or farmers decide that terrain that is perhaps not used particularly for farming can be returned to nature to bring back insects and bees and birds and mammals. There's a particularly good British book on this subject which is called Wilding by Isabella Tree, that's worth reading as an introduction to this subject. In fact, wilding has become part of government policy in the UK, in the sense that they're in the process of withdrawing subsidies that are given to often wealthy large landowners and farmers, and using that money to encourage wilding projects, rewilding projects, in the hope that in a relatively short period of time, in a few decades, the biodiversity of the country, which is under threat as it is everywhere in the world and everywhere in Europe, can be reversed, and before they die out completely, animals of all types and plants can come back. So there are large and medium-sized rewilding projects, but also small size. Your own garden, your own back garden, you can rewild by leaving part of it where you don't mow the grass. We've done this with our garden, and within a couple of years the The results are incredible. We've had fireflies and hedgehogs and all sorts of varieties of butterflies and insects that we hadn't seen before, and wildflowers everywhere. So you can mow part of the land to put your barbecue and your deck chair, but leave certain areas for the animals to colonize and birds to make their nests. As I said before, the area where I am now is called l'Éperon de Murat. Now, l'Éperon means spur because geographically this is a spur of land which in fact was home to a Neolithic settlement. Walls still remain here, and Neolithic tools, axe heads, arrow heads, bone scrapers have been found here. So it was a prominent area that was favoured by Neolithic people, with caves as well. There are places where they could go into shelter which today are occupied by bats. Anyway, in 1990 this area was rewilded, so 30 years ago, and the aim was to preserve a remarkable site with its flora and fauna. In terms of trees, there's downy oak and ash trees, grassland, and a mosaic of other plants, including rare species like Autumnodonis or pheasant's eye. There are, in this area, which is, as I said, 40 hectares, there are 8 distinct habitats and 360 plant species, including 20 varieties of wild orchids. There are 380 species of insect, including the large blue butterfly, which is quite rare, 52 species of birds, including the European nightingale, 18 mammal species, 10 of which are bats, and so an area very rich in biodiversity, and all they had to do was leave it and not touch it for 30 years, though in fact the time that it takes for a place to rewild can be even shorter than that. So we're constantly being told about the huge decline in biodiversity everywhere, largely brought about by industrial farming and the use of deadly pesticides that disrupt the food chain. Here is a solution: wilding, rewilding. This, in little pockets of land, little tracts and terrains, or even in your back garden, it all adds up and creates an environment that is hospitable for animals and insects and birds and plants and life. Even more so perhaps in this period of lockdown, when not so many people come to disturb nature in the wild. We are the exceptions today. We're the only people here. Let's go for a walk.